Hello, dissidents. Welcome to this special screening of our documentary film, Ruckus, The Making of a Revolutionary, starring our friend Jose Vega. So we shot this film in April of last year and first screened it back in February. But given that Jose is now a candidate for Congress and that it's 1 month till Election Day, we thought now would be a good time to do another screening. Plus, our channels, both YouTube and Rumble, have more than doubled in size since this film first dropped, and so many, if not most of you, are going to be seeing this film for the first time. Some of you, of course, are here because Jose sent you from his social media channels, and some of you just heard about Jose this week after his intervention at the Paul Krugman event in New York City became his most viral yet.
Okay. Uh-oh, Nobel Prize-winning economist here to tell us how great the economy is. I certainly wonder how the residents of Asheville, North Carolina must be feeling right now with no access to power or water or communication with the outside world. I wonder how enthusiastic they are about the economy right now. I wonder how enthusiastic the residents of the South Bronx must be feeling about the economy. Hey, maybe North Carolina should rename itself Israel so it'll get $20 billion in aid. Or maybe Ukraine so it can get $300 billion in aid. Maybe the South Bronx should do the same thing.
Like all of Jose's protests, it was peaceful, nonviolent, always peaceful, always nonviolent, but also, of course, undeniably impactful. And this one, this Paul Krugman protest action, made such an impact on Krugman himself that he not only tweeted about it the following day, but was also inspired enough by it to write an op-ed in the New York Times about Jose's protest against him. So Jose is obviously making an impact. We want his candidacy to make an impact next month. And so we're adding this film now to our video catalog 1 month before Election Day. The film will start shortly, but first, here's a brief introduction from the man himself, candidate for New York's 15th Congressional District, our friend Jose Vega.
Hi everyone, it's Jose Vega here, congressional candidate running in the Bronx against Zionist shill Richie Torres, and that still feels a little weird to say that I am a congressional candidate. When we set out to make this documentary a year and a half ago, April of 2023, running for Congress didn't really feel like a reality at that point. People were asking me to run, people were telling me I should run, I was getting all kinds of phone calls and advice about it, but I never really thought I would actually jump in, and the decision to do it was almost like a spur of the moment decision, because the pressures and the demands of the world required me to elevate the intervention process that we had started. And I decided, you know what? I have to have a platform, I have to have something that people can latch onto and mobilize who want to help the country and help the world and stop these genocidal wars and stop World War III. And I want to take a second here to say thank you to every single one of you who has contributed to my campaign, who has donated your time, your money, your support, your messages, and your outpouring of love. I want to give a special thank you to everybody who came out and petitioned for me. Over 100 people came out and petitioned for me from around New York City, from around New Jersey, Connecticut. I've had people come from North Carolina, Missouri, Ohio, California, just to get my name on the ballot here in the Bronx. And that is something that I could never completely show my true appreciation for. And I want to thank all of you superstars for getting me as far as we have gotten. We've only just getting started. But now there's 30 days left until the campaign is over. And there are two things that I must stress to you. One is that we need to accelerate the intervention principle, and there is no better time to do that than now, October, 1 month before the elections, when these ghouls pop out of their chambers and their ivory towers to tell you, they pretend that they actually care about you, so you don't forget to go and vote for them a month from now. You have to intervene in the way that I myself and my friends have been intervening. The way in which the people who stood up for Gaza have been intervening. It is your job to accelerate it now. If 1,000 disruptions were happening, like the one I did on Paul Krugman just recently, were happening every day between now and 2 weeks from now, not even now, between November 5th, could we actually have some semblance of a government and some semblance of government accountability? Can we inspire the people of the world enough through our intervention principle to wake up and demand action and demand truthfulness and accountability in government? That is what the interventions serve. It's a way of inspiring change and hope in people so that they don't give up and want to declare their independence, and we have to do that now. And one of our major interventions is what we have going on October 26th. We are building a chorus for peace. We are gathering 1,000 people for an indoor rally. And some of the people who will be speaking there are Larry Wilkerson, Scott Ritter, and your friends, Russ and Keaton of DueDissidence, as well as other names to be announced, and this will be happening in Manhattan. And if you would like to buy the tickets to attend it or donate so you can attend, the link is in the description where you can come and you can attend. It's October 26th, and the address will be released upon you once you get a ticket. But this indoor rally process is part of a major global intervention right now because the United States is scattered and there is more that unites us than divides us. And one of the things that unites us is the fear of global thermonuclear war. One of the things that unites us is that we are all against the idea of genocide. And people are afraid to confront the fact that their government is complicit in a genocide right now. And that makes it all the more important that you tell the truth in front of the authorities who tell you everything is fine and everything is going according to plan. They are liars. You have to elect yourself to be a truth teller. That is how I've been running my campaign this entire time. What is it that I could be doing right now that I don't need to be elected for that I would be doing if I was already a congressman? And I want to challenge every single one of you to do the exact same thing. Because the fate of humanity does depend on your action right now. And inaction is a choice. So I hope you enjoy this documentary. I hope you understand that the reason it was made was to inspire people like yourself with a conscience to move and act and do something. So thank you.
Thank you for coming. This is a very intimidating place to be. I have a television show, which I know technically is sort of like public speaking, but I can't see anybody's face when I do that, so you're freaking me out. I will also say just tonight, especially feeling the gravitas and the moral weight of this place. I know there's a lot of things to be paying attention to in the world right now other than a book. And so to see you all here and to be together to talk about this topic really moves me. So thank you.
Rachel, I'd rather not listen to your boring book because you are here to get Israel wrong yet again. Just like you got 2016 wrong yet again. All you are is the biggest warmonger. You and the rest of the media are the biggest warmongers ever. Why is it that other countries are calling for peace? Brazil, Russia, India, and China all call for peace from the United Nations. And what do? You're just a big, ugly face. You're a warmonger. All of you are just straight warmongers. right! Look at what they do to free speech! There's an ethnic cleansing in Gaza! And all you do is tell lies about it! You and the rest of the media are warmongers! Every single one of you are all warmongers!
Bye-bye! 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 So long! See ya! Ciao!
I was born in the Bronx, and I lived in Harlem till I was about 5, actually. Then my parents decided they wanted to get away from the city, so they moved to a little town called Plainfield, New Jersey, and I went to elementary and middle school there, and then they got divorced, and so my mom and I came back to the city, and her and I, funny enough, we were renting a room together, and we were sharing a twin-size bed for a few months, and then we upgraded where we got a cot. I'm a freshman in high school, and she's working 2 jobs. She's working in Dunkin' Donuts during the day and Marshall's in the afternoon, and so I never saw her during the day. I'd come home and she wasn't there. We'd only get an apartment, and I'd only have my own room when we moved into the Bronx when I was about 15, so I was a sophomore in high school.
So in 2013, you first encountered the LaRouche movement. Can you talk a little bit about that?
In 2013, I was going to high school, Manhattan Hunter Science High School. And it wasn't a specialized high school until about 2 years after I was admitted into. So about the time I was a junior, it became a specialized high school. And I would see these tables from the LaRouche people. I would make fun of them, or I would just say something like, that's incredibly racist, whatever. And it's funny because those people then become my friends, the people who are behind those tables. And one day I just said, okay, all right, let me entertain. Let me go at a table here. Let me figure out what this is all about. And so I would talk with the organizers, and they'd tell me stuff I had no idea what the hell they were talking about. What did Obama do? Why should he be, tried for prison or something? Or why should he be impeached? Because that was their big thing, impeach Obama. And I would go home and Google, why should Obama be impeached? And I would get all the Republican answers like, he's done, constitutional overreach or whatever the Republicans were saying at the time. Not anything about his war crimes or anything that he was committing. And at the time, I didn't really know about Edward Snowden either. And that was when the Snowden story, I think, was starting to get leaked. And Obama had called Snowden a hacker with a laptop.
I'm not going to be scrambling jets to get a 29-year-old hacker.
Anyway, I decided to go to a Schiller Institute meeting. And they started talking, and I don't understand anything that they're saying, right? And I'm kind of intimidated a little bit because these people clearly know what they're talking about and I don't. And so that's kind of where it all started right there. I wanted to know what this was about, and that was my political awakening, my real political awakening, where I became cognizant of all the injustices of the world and the way the world really works.
Wow. Huh. Unconfirmed. Yeah. Unconfirmed. No. Unconfirmed reports about Gaddafi being captured.
The way I see politics and, what the Schiller Institute has influenced me on it is that, it's not about policy. A president can't just wave his hand and fix society. You have to see what's influencing the culture and the society that dictates the policy that you have now. The reason why you have such insane policies, and the reason why you have such an insane foreign policy of invading every other country is because you have a culture that doesn't prioritize human life.
We came, we saw, he died.
Classical culture is all about the ennoblement of the human soul and the ennoblement of the human mind and the human image. What does it mean to be a human being? That's all classical culture is about, whether it's in music or literature or paintings. That's what it's all about. What does it mean to be a human being? Why should you be happy to be alive? What does it mean to be alive? What are you going to do with your life? And what are you going to do to create something that will be immortal? That's what classical literature is about. You need to have a society that recognizes that being a human being is a good thing, inherently a good thing, that all people are created equal. And classical culture helps us understand that and realize that it's the way to get young people to understand why they're even here. Because who asks that question the most? It's teenagers. I didn't even ask to be born. Well, you are here, and here's why it's a good thing. So the classical culture aspect and component to the politics is the crux of everything. Because you could do every policy right, but if people don't believe they're worth it, it's all for nothing. And the reason there's an attack on classical culture is because it stops dictators and it stops fascism. That's ultimately what it is. If you can create a society where people aren't reading Shakespeare or listening to classical music, that means you have a society that's unable to think critically and to understand nuance and metaphor, meaning they can't see what's happening to them because people are limited only to their five senses. When your government says, oh no, we're just doing this, if you're unable to think critically or think beyond just what they're saying, okay, I'll take your word for it, I guess, I'm not doing anything wrong, so I don't care if people spy on me, right? But it's a method of thinking that you unlock when you open your mind to classical culture, because then nobody can pull the wool over your eyes. You're able to actually think and formulate a thought and analyze what somebody's telling you.
Knowledge shouldn't be someone who reads a textbook and then tells you what they read. That's not learning. That's just you trying to memorize something to put on paper so you can eventually graduate high school and then just become another one, another person, another cog in a giant machine. You don't stick out. We all have knowledge inside us, but we just need someone to take it out from us. Thank you.
And so I would talk about this with my global economics teacher and also my media literacy teacher too. I tell her, I just joined this political group. They're great. They're called the LaRouche organization. They've been around since the 70s, They're like some of the coolest people. They want Glass-Steagall back and they want, a bank holiday. And she tells me, I want those things. Wow, that's great. We had this whole conversation back and forth. The next day, she's like, Jose, can I talk to you for a second? Here, and then she turns her laptop to me. I think you're in a cult. I was like, what? I had to act surprised because like what she's showing me, I had already read. So I'm like, what? No. Oh, damn. And so never talked to her again about the LaRouche organization.
My expectation is that this will be an extremely productive and exciting year for this city council and for the people of Burlington. Welcome aboard.
Today, I am proud to announce my candidacy for President of the United States of America.
So in late 2014, early 2015, I was introduced to Bernie Sanders through my global economics teacher. He was getting a little bit of traction because first there were whispers of him running, and we were all New Yorkers, so we didn't really understand why that was such a big deal. And she explained to us who Bernie Sanders was and what a revolutionary he was. And then he announced his candidacy. And I remember there was Bernie fever. There were all these memes. He was trending on social media. So I was like, okay, I'm all for Bernie. He seems to be an outsider of the establishment. I had anti-establishment fever at the time.
Our message has resonated much faster, much further than I thought it would.
And, I was like, okay, yeah, I think Bernie Sanders is my guy for president.
I think we are touching a nerve with the American people who understand that establishment politics is just not good enough. We need bold changes. We need a political revolution.
I started election season as a Bernie bro, and I ended as a Trump voter.
How stupid are the people of Iowa?
How does that happen?
Somebody hits me with a belt's going in because the belt moves this way. It moves this way. It moves that way.
Well, like I was saying, I had anti-establishment sentiments. I knew Hillary Clinton was a bitch, just to put it straightforward.
Senator Sanders wasn't really a Democrat until he decided to run for president. He doesn't even know what the last two Democratic presidents did. And well, it's true. It's true. It's true.
I knew she was evil, I was like, Bernie's my guy. And then he lost the primary. And then it gets revealed in the WikiLeaks emails that Hillary Clinton conspired to get him out of the race.
You're back in the news, of course, because WikiLeaks released thousands and thousands of emails from the Democratic National Committee.
And there was inner establishment in the Democratic Party working against one of their own people to get Hillary Clinton the nomination.
Do you think this is fair game?
Well, it was definitely good fun.
And I was just so pissed off at that. I was like, what the hell? Okay, what happened to, quote, democracy? You guys got to fight for the nomination. You can't play dirty. You can't play unfair. What is this? And then what really pissed me off was that Bernie didn't want to fight it either. He then endorsed Hillary Clinton. I was like, how do you get fucked in the ass and then bend over for them again? Come on. Sorry, is that okay for me to?
Oh, yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah, okay.
That's very on brand.
Have you seen our show?
Yeah.
No, seriously, he gets fucked in the ass, and then he bends over again and says, please, sir, can I have some more?
I want to thank Bernie Sanders.
I didn't really know what to believe. I was kind of disillusioned in the whole electoral politics system. That's kind of when I realized, there's no real democracy in this country anymore. If you can just conspire to do that and get away with it too. So I look over at the Republican side and I see this guy Trump who announces, and I'm like, okay, well, the media hates him. Hillary hates him. Fuck it. I like this guy because everybody hates him. And so as I'm becoming politically awakened and I'm seeing all the injustices around the world, I'm seeing the injustices here in the country, I'm just thinking, well, maybe anything is better than what we have now, on the virtue that because he's not them, maybe it'll be a net positive instead of a net negative.
Donald J. Trump will become the 45th president of the United States, defeating Hillary Clinton had a campaign unlike anything we've seen in our lifetime.
Do I regret supporting him? No, I don't regret supporting him. I am glad that he beat Hillary because I think the events that have transpired in Ukraine would have just happened 4 years earlier had Hillary Clinton won. So it was kind of a delay in that. When he sanctioned Venezuela, that was a pretty big no-no for me. And then he killed Soleimani, and that was another big no-no for me. When he lost the election, I was like, okay, well, maybe he'll pardon Assange and Snowden, because he was saying he would pardon them. Didn't happen. And then there was word that Bill Barr kind of convinced him not to. And that was like the final, like, okay, you know what? I can't believe I let all of this slip by. You killed Soleimani. You put these sanctions on Venezuela that starved thousands of people there. And you didn't even pardon Assange and Snowden, which you said you would do. And that to me was kind of like the final nail in the coffin where I don't trust anyone anymore.
In 2018, the ceiling in your apartment collapsed. Can you explain how this affected you and what its influence was long-term on your politics and where the journey to get justice for that ended you up?
Yeah, in 2018, my apartment had collapsed and basically like my whole life was turned upside down there.
One tenant's weekend was anything but relaxing in Morris Heights. His apartment damaged, causing severe flooding.
News for the Bronx reporter Aisha McKenzie went to East 177th Street to check it out.
Friday, though, just half of that wall came down.
Jose Vega sending the cell phone video to News 12 of the aftermath of his ceiling dropping onto the floor, causing his Morris Heights basement apartment to become an unsanitary mess.
I lived in a basement apartment at the time, so the water, there was sewage water that was leaking on the ceiling, and every day it would just bubble down a little more. It was like a bulge that was kind of depressing down more and more and more until finally it just collapsed. And then there was all this sewage water all over the place and it wouldn't stop falling. The super didn't want to do anything about it. I went to my Councilman Cabrera. At first his office was pretty helpful because they got Housing and Preservation Development, or HPD. It's a local government agency that inspects all these houses, because when I called them they said, no problem, we'll be out there in 2 weeks. He got them out there next day. And, then I told him I had gotten a lawyer pro bono.
He says he called his landlord multiple times to tell him about the gaping hole in the ceiling and the water him and his mother have had to mop out the door.
And his chief of staff told me, oh, so you're thinking of fighting this? You're thinking of suing the landlord?
We got a hold of the landlord on Sunday. He told my mother, hey, if you want, I can rip up the lease we just signed a week ago and just get your things out and leave.
And I said, yeah, and then I told him, but I'm not the only one this is happening to. I'm sure there's other stories like mine, but there's people who can't even speak English that this is happening to. So I'm hoping we can do something to systemically change this because, landlords shouldn't be getting away with this. And his chief of staff told me, well, you're the one in front of me right now. You can't really change everything at once. Let's just do one by one. We'll just start with you. So Councilman Cabrera's chief of staff told me, if somebody approached you with $15,000, would you take it to drop the whole case? You just move out, let it go. And I said, I would consider it if it was $999 million. And he said, don't be ridiculous. Use the money and go to school or organize and become a tenant advocate. And I said, I'm doing it right now. I'm trying to help you do that. And he said, come on, kid, don't be ridiculous. I understand your passion and your fire. And then the councilman walked in and he said, this guy's gonna be the mayor one day. Oh, you can tell what kind of spirit and passion he has. And so I left that day And then the chief of staff called my mother that same night and said, listen, if your son continues with litigation on this, you will never be able to rent an apartment in New York City again because your name is going to be on a list. When I went back to the apartment the next day, the locks were changed. And that's illegal to do in New York City. You have to give a 2-week notice. And I called the police because I called my lawyer who said call the police and tell them that. And so there I am outside arguing with the super to let me in. And the police arrive and they say, okay, well, is your name on the lease? And I say, no, my mother's name is on the lease. And they say, okay, well, can you get your mother here? I call my mom. And my mom says, no, I don't approve of you fighting for this apartment. We're just gonna move out and you're gonna drop the whole thing. And so there I am outside of the apartment, and I have the cops who don't believe me. They think I'm just some squatter because my stuff was still in there, my clothes and my books and some other things I had in there. And then I have the super who's telling the cops, yeah, man, they're crazy. You know, they're making all this up. You know, they said they wanted to move out anyway. And I was just absolutely defeated at that time because it was the first time that I felt like I lost a battle or something. And I had reached out to AOC's team because she had just won the primary in New York. And I was so disillusioned with politics that she seemed like a real hope for people. She had just beat Joe Crowley. She had just beat the establishment candidate. I needed something to believe in. So I wrote an email to her team, you know, saying, I don't know what to believe in anymore, but I just, you know, we were homeless basically after that because we didn't have anywhere to go. And so I lived with my sister and my mom lived with my uncle for a few months. And, you know, I don't remember hearing back from AOC's team. And, you know, this was a primary. She had just won. And I thought she could use her media darling to bring attention to the injustice. And I just remember crying on a stoop because the cops had left and the super had left. And I just felt incredibly alone at that time. I didn't know what to do. I went through all the legal hoops. I got a lawyer pro bono, and the person who's supposed to be my advocate, my councilman, is threatening my mom with saying she can never rent an apartment again in New York City. Who do you go to? Where do you seek justice when the justice makers aren't the ones who are supposed to help you? I was homeless for a bit, like 3 or 4 months or so, and my mom, grandpa, and I were separated because my mother lived with my uncle and my grandfather, and I lived with my sister for a bit. And you know, it wasn't healthy for our relationship, I'll put it that way, because for one, we would get into arguments all the time about that apartment, you know, blaming each other for how the way things ended and the circumstances and everything ended. And you know, secondly, there was just a tension between us and the bad blood, and you know, and also we were separated too. So, you know, I'm just like, whatever. And The way we got out of it was we found a 1-bedroom apartment up in Norwood, like north of the Bronx. Last stop on the D train. It was a 1-bedroom apartment, tiny apartment, split between myself, my mother, and my grandfather. None of us were happy campers, and we stayed there for about a year or so. And I did my best to get out of the house as much as I could, just because like I couldn't be in there. My room was in the living room, so my room wasn't really. So, you know, you'd have a kitchen, and then there's my bed right there. And then that place was roach infested and rat infested, and it was like $1,500 for 1 bedroom. It was not a good time. And thankfully we found this place where I live now. So, you know, now I'm known as the guy who yells at politicians, but I didn't really start out that way, actually. I tried to do all the right steps, as you say, and it goes back to the apartment thing, because I went to my councilman's office, and he was actually the most help I got, because I went to my assemblywoman, here's some numbers for legal resources. I didn't use any of them to get the lawyer, I got pro bono. I went to my congressman's office, Jose Serrano. His office was no help because that was his last term in Congress. He was out the door already, so they didn't really care. I never got any follow-up from them. So my councilman was the way to go. After that, I worked on a congressional campaign in South Dakota. And I was really happy I did, because I learned about what was happening over there and how the farmers were suffering over there, and how they were going through floods and they wouldn't get their farms or their infrastructure repaired. They wouldn't get the aid. And I learned how farmers are really fucked. I got an opportunity to understand the other side of the coin of how other people live too. It's not just in the cities, it's the whole country.
Your first intervention was with Adriano Espaillat in 2019.
You forgot Victoria Nuland.
Oh, Victoria Nuland. I told you I was going to get in trouble.
That's right. The woman who funded Nazis in Ukraine, who your party helped elect.
All right, very
to
good.
overthrow the Ukrainian government and to put the coup against the president.
Okay.
Why do you support that? Why do you don't serve the veterans? You don't honor the veterans?
Okay.
If you honored the veterans, you would actually support. You would not support the coup your party has presented. Why did you help Victoria Nuland put Nazis in Ukraine?
Now, this is when Trump is still president. It's before the war, but you called him out for supporting Ukrainian Nazis. Why did you know about that at that time?
One, because Max Rhodes and other congressmen, including Hakeem Jeffries, put out this letter saying, hey, what's going on with the Azov battalion in Ukraine? Why is our money being used for the Azov battalion? We should not be giving resources to the Azov battalion. But even 4 years before that, there was the Maidan coup. And so the Maidan coup was extensively reported on by our organization. That was the first instance of where I understood how the United States conducts coups around the world. That on top of the shelling that was going on in the Donbass. So Ukraine, there's the west and east, and the western part is shelling the eastern part of Ukraine. This is provoking the Russians to do something, and then NATO keeps expanding east, so we needed to go out there and do something. So I went out to Espaillat because he was the nearest one. I saw he had an event going on, and I was alone that day. I just set my camera on the little cup, and as Espaillat starts thanking people, it was a Veterans Day event too. So I was really scared because there was veterans in there who could probably kick your ass, but they were all old, 70 plus. So I don't think I had anything to worry about.
I believe strongly that the Ukraine facing a major assault from Russia and the Kurds facing a major assault from Al-Qaeda and ISIS have been our traditional allies. And we should honor that allegiance by respecting them. Those have fought hand in hand in the trenches next to us, and I will fight to continue to honor that. Thank you for your opinion. We'll be back to you.
No. How do you sit there and lie like that? Why don't you take Jerry Nadler's hand out your ass and talk for yourself? You ever thought about that? Oh, being disrespectful. Look at the people in your community.
Come on, knock it off.
Look at the people in your community. Poorest district, and all you can do is try and impeach the president.
Brother, don't do that to yourself.
In October of 2021, 1 year, almost exactly 1 year before I did the AOC intervention, I intervened on Kamala Harris. I remember that day, I woke up around like 9 a.m. or 9:30 and I get a call. And the call is like, hey, Jose, Kamala Harris is coming to the Bronx. And I'm like still half asleep, like what? Yeah, she's speaking at the YMCA up north in the Bronx. Today? Yeah, in like 30 minutes. I don't even like change out of my pajamas. I just go. I just put on a jacket and I just go. And when I get to the YMCA, at first I'm like scoping the area, like how the hell am I supposed to get in? And so I see there's like a line of families, all very well dressed, all like spiffied up. And I get behind that line, the last guy, and so they start checking people in because they were all supposed to have a photo op with Kamala Harris. They were only letting residents of the neighborhood come in. And even then I was talking to the people on the line. Oh, I'm a community organizer. Oh, I'm a principal. I'm a teacher. We do organizing for the Democratic Party. So all the people who were coming to the event were only Democratic Party insiders. So there I am, and I see a lady with a clipboard. There's a lady with a clipboard, and I see names on there. I'm able to peek through the fence, and I see a name that's like Thomas More or something. I'm like, okay, Thomas More, that's my name. So as we're walking and the line's getting closer, I'm behind this lady, this big lady, and she's got like 3 kids with her. And what happens is, she's like, my name is this, and these are my kids, and their name's not on the list, but they're coming in. I swear to God, and if they don't get in, I'm not coming in. I'm not gonna come in here until Beautiful. So the lady with the clipboard is so freaked out because she doesn't know how. She's like a little petite lady. She doesn't know how to handle this. She's like, oh, okay, no problem. I don't even say a name. I just walk in with her. The lady with the clipboard is so freaked out, she doesn't even bother like trying to get my attention. And right there, I knew coast was clear. I'm in. And so the security guards pat me down. And he's like, hey man, how's it going today? I'm like, it's great. I'm gonna see my favorite vice president, Kamala Harris. It's gonna be awesome. And so I sit down in the audience and I'm sweating. And I'm like almost hyperventilating because like I really am afraid and scared. And the other thing is like, what am I gonna say exactly? There's so much to go after this airhead for. She was coming to promote the Build Back Better plan.
On climate, it's about better health. It's about better jobs.
And at the time, maybe like a week or so or 2 weeks before, we had that Hurricane Ida. 8 people had drowned in their basement. And we knew that those were flood zones since the 70s. But it wasn't even the flood zones that killed them. They were stuck in their apartments with all this water rushing in from the toilets because the sewer system got backed up. And so the water from the sewage system is what killed them.
And intentionally, it is about our families.
So she wants to come here and talk about Build Back Better. So when she finally stood up, I said, what about the families who drowned? 8 families drowned here in Queens. It could have been prevented if we had the right infrastructure.
You are right, brother.
I am right about that. This was around the time when an article had come out from the BBC saying the Chinese successfully stopped poverty in their country or something. So everybody in China was now, or virtually everybody, was living above the international poverty line.
And the Chinese have shown that poverty is a choice. Why aren't we working with the Chinese on their Belt and Road Initiative? The bankers run a dictatorship here.
And so I said, why aren't we working with the Chinese on their Belt and Road Initiative? Because the Chinese, with every administration, they always invite the president to be a part of the Belt and Road Initiative. And Trump denied it, Biden denied it. And so I said, why aren't we working with them, you know?
And I forget what else I said after that, but as I was getting dragged out, which is like the best thing ever, you know.
We need to pass Glass-Steagall back.
But right now, let's talk about the agenda.
No, the agenda doesn't address the fact that people are going to die.
You know, the scariest thing about an intervention is not what you say. It's actually standing up and breaking the tension. Because once you actually stand up and you get the first words out of your mouth, you've done the hardest part already. Then, when you're actually going and you're saying whatever you're saying, it feels like you're flying almost, like you're untouchable. You've already done the deed you're not supposed to do. You've broken the social contract. You're in uncharted territory, and it feels amazing, actually, because you're doing something nobody else in the audience had the guts to do, and you don't really know what the consequences are in the moment, but in that moment, you're in control. You have the power. You command that room. Even if it's for 30 seconds or a minute, that's all you. That's your moment. In all of history and all of time and space, you know, I believe that life is a constant dialogue between the past, present, and future. And that point when you stand up and you speak truth to power is an inflection point. In history, everything gets changed after that. And that's you, forever.
We could do more on lowering prescription drug costs. We could do more on gun control. We could do more with regard to the black agenda. We can do more.
I confronted Jamal Bowman in September of 2022. This was maybe like a couple weeks before I did the AOC intervention.
Congressman, you're a hypocrite because you are funding neo-Nazis in Ukraine. They are wearing the Black Sun symbol, the same symbol that the Buffalo shooter used, the same symbol that the person who almost killed the vice president in Argentina used.
Thank you so
say you
much.
want to advance the black cause, but you are funding the same people who kill in the name of white supremacy.
And, you know, he's like completely just like this is what he does. I guess he's like trying to say like, give him the floor, you know, like First Amendment, you know.
This is the foundation. This is the foundation of our democracy, freedom of speech.
You know, like this is him in the video, like.
Stick around and I will have a conversation with you right after the end, but let me get to the conclusion.
He does, I stick around and I'll talk to you after. And I say, you promise. And like, I did want to talk to him, you know.
I promise, I got you.
So I stick around and I talk to him afterwards. It took like 40 minutes for him to come to me.
The foundation of our democracy is freedom of speech. Freedom of speech.
So finally Bowman comes up to me. He's like, yo, man, what was that about, man? Come on, man. You could have pulled me to the side and said, Mr. Bowman, you know, we got the XYZ. Well, you didn't have to come at me. Yeah. I was like, Mr. Bowman, you know, you said you were going to take questions. You didn't take questions. Yeah, but still, come on, man. You know, come on. You could have pulled me to the side and said, what's up, Mr. Bowman? I said, okay, well, anyway, and are you even a constituent of mine? What is this, man? And I said, well, no, I'm part of Richie Torres's district, one district below you, so you're not even my constituent, man. You're not even my constituent. You coming all yelling at me like, Mr. Bowman, come on. All right, well, listen, Mr. Bowman, all decisions you make affect everyone. You're funding neo-Nazis just as Richie Torres is, so what are we going to do on that? And I think his exact words were something like, we're going to do the work on what we came, that we're going to keep doing what we came to do on the work we said we're going to do. Something like that. And he just left.
The office of Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Thank you so much for
Congresswoman,
joining our town
none of
hall
this
tonight.
matters unless there's a nuclear war, which you voted to send arms and weapons to Ukraine. Tulsi Gabbard, she's left the Democratic Party because okay? You originally voted, you ran as an outsider.
The day of the AOC intervention was just like any other day. We didn't think it was going to be some big thing that it is now. We didn't think it was going to be the biggest inflection point in American history that hopefully inspired other people to do it. But basically, that day, we were like, okay, it was me and Kynan and a third friend who will remain nameless because he wants to be nameless. The third friend didn't even want to intervene. He just wanted to be the cameraman. So that's why and he was a very good cameraman, as people could see in the intervention. But that day, we weren't thinking, okay, you're gonna yell and then I'm gonna, we were thinking, okay, Kynan, if you get the mic first, then you gotta say blah, 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 blah. And then if I get the mic after, we say ta, 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 ta. Then when we walked into the place, oh, here's a note card, write your question down, and then we'll make sure the congresswoman gets it. And so when we finally sat down and Kynan and I sat apart from each other, we were like, oh my fucking God, we're not gonna be able to get hurt, are we? We're gonna have to stand up, right? And so I had just did the Bowman intervention, and that went pretty viral too. It was played on Jimmy Dore, and so he, Kynan was feeling a little like, oh, I want the spotlight too. So I was like, go ahead, brother, you go first.
Why are you playing with the lives of Americans? You're playing with our lives. Tulsi Gabbard's a Russian player.
At the time, Tulsi Gabbard had just left the Democratic Party. And I get a lot of shit for mentioning that, like, oh, you shouldn't have mentioned Tulsi. But, I believe in talking to anybody from any point of view.
I'm not asking you to respect me. I'm not asking anybody. All right, y'all, I'm not asking anybody here to respect me. I'm asking you to respect your neighbors.
Kynan went off, and he got dragged away. And then I went off. Kynan and I walked out with doubts, like, should we have done it that way? Is this gonna look okay? Is this gonna be okay? And I was really scared because I was on my way home on the train thinking like, well, this isn't what we wanted to do. We were hoping we could have just asked her a question or something, and we thought maybe we came off too mean or aggressive. So I posted and I said it, and then I see you get 100 views and 1,000 views and then 10,000 views. And I called Kynan, I'm like, hey man, this thing has 10,000 views.
Why not right now? You're the liar here.
Okay, so those are actual progressives. Now, there's no doubt that on virtually any other issue, we wouldn't agree with them. Don't know what their beliefs are, probably don't intersect with ours. But on this specific issue, which does matter, they're absolutely right.
Let your conscience come through for once.
I will get to your issue. I'm not even ignoring what you have to say. I'm not even ignoring what you have to say. What I'm saying
So you heard what I had to say.
is that what I'm asking is that you respect all these people who are sitting here and have been waiting, and you're standing up and
Just a yes or no question.
And I know you may think. I know you may think.
It's that simple. Are you against nuclear war or not?
Of course I'm a comic.
Then why are you funding the Ukraine?
At that time, I went to sleep. I wake up, it had 1 million views. And 1 million views at the time felt like, oh my God, we hit the jackpot, Now, if I post an intervention and it doesn't get at least 100,000 views, I'm like, wow, it's a fucking bust.
You guys are some of the most famous guys we've ever spoken to now. Believe it or not.
Maybe
you guys are like the biggest celebs we've ever had.
I was just completely blown away at like the reaction, and then it just kept getting bigger and bigger, and then Jesse Waters covered it on his show on Fox News, and then he had Tulsi Gabbard come on the show.
I don't know what happened to her or what she believes in.
And I was like, what? And Tulsi Gabbard was like, I want to thank those boys for being brave and being sincere in their, anti-war efforts.
I hope everyone was paying attention to what those two young men were saying and paying attention to the pain and the anguish and the fear and the concern that they were expressing.
Come on, right? I didn't think I could have that kind of effect. And then Tucker Carlson did it. I was like, oh shit, that's like the most viewed, conservative news source, everything, right?
Her response, "You are being rude. Oh, you're being rude now," says the very same Sandy Cortez who instructed activists to terrorize their political opponents. Quote, "The whole point of protesting is to make people uncomfortable." Oh, is that right? So they were kind of following your instructions, weren't they?
Honestly, I was very happy to see the unity between the disgruntled left. So people who were upset with the Democratic Party, who may have left the Democratic Party, people who maybe were like, I'm on the left, I think we should have like a socialist-like government. We thought AOC was the real deal and we're not. Agreeing with people who were conservatives, for a moment there was this beautiful window. Everybody was saying the same thing. This intervention was legit and it was good.
So how did you feel about AOC's dismissive reaction to your intervention, claiming you're not really anti-war, that you're in a cult?
I think the fact that she had to respond at all showed that we really kicked her ass on that, because the best PR strategy in anything is ignore and let it go. And if they can ignore it, well, that means we had a real breakthrough on something.
AOC was asked about this, and she gave the following response. Could you speak on being confronted by anti-war protesters? She says, sure. They were actually not anti-war protesters. They were right-wing Trumpers, and some were LaRouche cult members, not progressives as they claimed. Their own social media history shows this.
So now they got to send the pro-war shit-lib army out to defend AOC and smear the activists. You guys think I was making this up? So this is Mehdi Hassan. This is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. What? Screaming hysterically about opposing war while praising Tulsi Gabbard, avoiding any mention of Putin, and blaming AOC.
It was a stunt that they do from time to time. Last time they showed up to a town hall yelling about eating babies or something. It's a thing they do to go viral and draw in people.
One protester accused AOC of voting to start this war in Ukraine. So this is Mehdi going after you. God know who else have chimed in since
Now, wait,
I
before you go to
logged on.
AOC's tweet though, just like I've
here it
heard
is.
of Mehdi's name. Who is he?
He's the dude, like big
He's a
name
piece
in media.
of. Oh, let me not say that. Let me not say that.
Like he's a big MSNBC guy.
A lot of these right-wing video and social media stunts are predicated on people not knowing the context and just believing whatever the person is saying for face value. For example, in the video, they cut out the part where they waited to yell until a deaf constituent was trying to ask a question so it would look like everyone was mad at their words instead of the fact that they were harming a person with a disability.
She initially tried to dismiss it by saying that I was speaking over a deaf constituent, or that Kynan was speaking over a deaf constituent, which total lie, by the way. People can just go back to the live stream and see they were reading a question that came in via email from a deaf constituent.
If you don't believe me, just go into her town hall that she live streamed, go to about like 49 minutes or so. The assistant who's reading the question says, we just got an email that came in from a deaf constituent.
So the next question we received was via email. How can you empower our deaf, disabled, BIPOC youth community to get more involved in government? Thank you. So we received this question via email, and I think it's very important. I want us to restate that question because even the way that it was submitted is important for us to understand. This question was emailed to us. It was emailed to us, and if you haven't noticed, this right here is our live streaming phone.
And then that's at the point where we start the intervention.
So our question, Angela, was the question, how do we get young people with disabilities to become more engaged?
You see how she's using that? Who is AOC? You see how she's using that? You see how she's twisting that? And we want to act like this person is going to fight for the working class?
Can we repeat that question? I'm sorry, Angela. Just people keep yelling over our neighbor with a disability. I want to make sure that they're heard.
So the question was, how can you empower our deaf, disabled, BIPOC youth community to get more involved in government?
Honestly, I don't even know if she really meant that defense, because when I did the intervention, we had a conference a couple days later, and I was asked to speak on like the motivation behind it and what I thought AOC's reaction was. My point is that when Kynan and I stood up and yelled at AOC, she didn't see us. She saw the ghost of her former self. She saw somebody, herself, with that same fiery passion and spirit that she once had. She saw that in us, so she saw herself in us. And that's what really freaked her out. That's what really messed with her conscience. Because when you're in that kind of position of power in the Democratic Party, could be also Republican Party, you have to make moral concessions. Okay, I have to put aside my moral compass, because if I want to get something done in Congress, I have to play their game. As Jamal Bowman put it recently, I'm playing the long game. AOC's playing the long game too. And I'm sure if she heard this, she would say, I don't know what I'm talking about because I don't know how things work on Capitol Hill. You know, things aren't as great as I'd like them to be. You have to do this and that. You have to work with this person and that person in order to get what you want. But there was once a time when AOC was saying, I don't care if I'm a one-term congressman. You have to go cause a ruckus. And I think what freaked her out is that she was on the other side of that. And that's what happened. And that's what she saw. And that's why she was forced to respond, because she had to make it make sense in her own mind to justify what she's doing right now, which is voting for arms and weapons to Ukraine, funding this proxy war, funding Azov Battalion. It's the only way she can live with herself. I had gotten my license in September, and I was like, let's go out of state, let's do an intervention. And who was coming to town? Well, not really town, it was Connecticut, it was Yale, it was Mike Pompeo. So we drove up there, and people were giving me a lot of shit. Why do you only do Democrats? Because I live in a Democrat area, what the fuck you want me to do, you know? If I lived in Marco Rubio's district, he wouldn't stop hearing it from me, you know. But Mike Pompeo was the closest thing coming, you know, to a Republican coming to New York. I went up there with Kynan and another friend of ours. And, you know, Mike Pompeo is the reason why we're in this mess today. Big Russiagate pusher. And actually, Mike Pompeo sat down with William Binney in 2017 at the request of Trump, because Trump told Pompeo, sit down with Binney. This guy claims he can prove there was no Russian hack. And as Binney tells the story, Mike Pompeo sat down with him, had one meeting, said, okay, we're going to be in contact. We'll call you. Don't worry about it. This is great stuff. Never heard from him again. Mike Pompeo knowingly pushed the Russiagate story, knowing there was forensic evidence to disprove it all. So, you know, he partly motivated the Ukrainian war by stoking tensions with Russia. And so we went and we gave him a piece of our mind. I mean, what do you say to a bloodthirsty war monger like that?
He said, Mike Pompeo, worst Secretary of State in history.
Yeah, and you're right. You are the worst Secretary of State in history. Why don't you tell us about the CIA? You lied and stole. The policies that you implemented, you were Secretary of State. They're the reason that we're currently headed towards a nuclear war
war with Russia and China. You distinguish yourself from people like Obama, but the two parties, they are the war party. And you are a deranged who has led us towards war. Talk to us why you killed Soleimani. Why'd you kill him? You that could have led us to another third world war.
One mistake we made with the Pompeo intervention was not bringing up the Binney thing, because I only thought about it after. I was like, oh shit, that was the whole thing we could get him on. That was the crux of our thing. I mean, not that we did bad. I mean, we got him on Assange, we got him on Syria, drone striking Soleimani. You know, we said that this guy belongs in hell, war criminal.
You are the embodiment of evil, and you should be in jail. What you did to Julian Assange, for all the dead children in Syria and in the Middle East, you should be in jail, and you should apologize for what you've done. Will you apologize, yes or no? You are the reason we are in this mess. You started 5 years ago. Go ahead, answer.
In the intervention, he responds and says, you know, we saved a lot of people by killing Soleimani.
We saved countless lives by spreading
You killed people!
That intervention is one of my favorites just because I was able to flex my driving.
Are those the same lives that you killed Allende across Vietnam? Your policies have killed it, not you, but the American state you serve. You are the deep state that Donald Trump was trying to purge. That's you. Shut up. You are the swamp monster. That's who you are. You are destroying this country.
I want to make clear that we extend and intend to try to find common ground whenever and wherever possible on behalf of the American people.
So the Hakeem Jeffries intervention that I did in February was coming off the heels of the Rage Against the War Machine rally that we held on February 19th. And so Hakeem Jeffries is talking about how he's the Democratic minority leader, he would have been Speaker of the House, and then he starts talking about John Lewis, I think, getting in good trouble. And he gives this story about how when he met John Lewis, John Lewis told him, I don't want to see you getting in any trouble except good trouble. And that's my advice to all the young folk out there. Get into some good trouble. If you see an injustice, expose it. And I agree.
The UN Security Council had a meeting yesterday, and Ray McGovern spoke to it. He is a former member of the CIA, and he testified in support of Seymour Hersh's article on the United States bombing Nord Stream pipeline.
You know, the first question in front of me was some guy asking a softball question like, how do we make sure Biden wins again? You know, and how do we make sure there's a majority so you can be Speaker of the House? Boo, fuck you, whatever.
If it is proven that the United States bombed the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, as has been asserted by Seymour Hersh and his article, will you call for the United States to acknowledge and admit that that was an act of war against Germany and Russia? And I'm asking this because this may be the only way to prevent the rest of us from being killed in a thermonuclear war, and I don't want to be fried.
I posed the question to him, which I pre-wrote beforehand because I knew Q&A was coming up. And I just thought, what is something a journalist could take from this, given that Seymour Hersh at the time had just broken the Nord Stream 2 story? Like, this thing was fresh, hot off the presses, that we have proof that the United States did in fact blow up the Nord Stream 2.
Don't you think the media should be reporting on whether or not this is true? And don't you think you should be inquiring into whether or not this is true?
And then he just tries to dodge my questions.
Well, thank you for the question.
And then I go into the intervention.
One, I've got no information to suggest that the United States was involved in bombing the Nord Stream pipeline.
Because you weren't briefed on it.
Sir, you got your chance to ask a question.
So give me an opportunity to respond.
You weren't given information because he explicitly says you weren't briefed on it. Shouldn't you inquire?
So here's what I'll say about, I think, of President Biden's leadership generally as it relates to the Ukraine?
I'm going to speak more generally to the leadership of Mr. Biden in Ukraine.
We committed an act of war. What are you doing to respond to that? We have to hold Biden accountable.
I tell him, not to compete with you, but you're Brooklyn and I'm from the Bronx, something like that.
Listen, you're from Brooklyn, right? You know when to call bullshit when you see it. So do I. This is bullshit right now. And I see what's happening right now.
And then they pulled the mic away from me, and then I said, that doesn't silence me. And so I walked up a few rows, and in retrospect, maybe I shouldn't have done that.
That does not silence me. You can hear me right now. I want you to say something about the bombing.
Maybe that could have been perceived as threatening. But hey, I kept my hands up, making sure nobody, I'm not trying to hurt anybody.
Because we're all going to die from a nuclear war right now unless you stop it and you at least put and inquire into whether or not it's true. This war in Ukraine is going to leave us all dead.
And then I just said, I want you to say something about the bombing.
So what are you going to do? Because you need to inquire. I'm a New Yorker too.
Here's what I'll say.
Say it.
We're going to continue to stand with the Ukrainian people.
That's fucking bullshit. Do not do that. You will end us all dead.
In this war against
we
Vladimir
need
Putin.
peace.
And before I did the intervention, maybe about 30 minutes before, I think about a month ago, he gave this alphabet speech.
House Democrats will always put American values over autocracy, benevolence over bigotry, the Constitution over the code, democracy over demagogues.
He could have stopped at D.
Economic opportunity over extremism, freedom over fascism.
And he had the audacity to go all the way to fucking Z.
Maturity over Mar-a-Lago, normalcy over negativity.
And so I remember hearing some pundits say, this is the greatest speech of America I've ever heard.
I'm noticing on Twitter that it's only dawning on some people that he went through the entire alphabet.
This is the night Hakeem Jeffries introduced himself to America.
You and I did not realize it until we got to W.
Yeah.
Working families over the well-connected.
That was,
it was extraordinary, but I will say he did have all week to prepare.
So, in my mind, I'm thinking like, what rhymes with airheadedness? Should I use airheadedness?
It's a battle between
how about
accountability,
not airheadedness?
I stopped at D, I think. Yeah, diplomacy, not destruction.
Battle between
tyranny
and freedom and democracy, truth, and freedom will prevail. And the United States is going to help make sure that happens.
Not destruction.
I thought the best way to get at him would be to ridicule him with that same speech that he gave, doing a variation on it. Variations on a speech by Hakeem Jeffries.
How about that?
I want to ask you to join me.
You goddamn airhead, you're gonna kill us all! I don't want to die in a goddamn nuclear war, and nobody does!
Are you afraid of what the establishment might do to you now that you're on their radar?
No. Will they? I mean, probably. Maybe they already have, and I just don't know how, or they're working on it or something. Guess if you see me in handcuffs in the next 6 months to a year, you'll know what happened. But, I'm not afraid of it. I mean, a lot of people have walked this path. Martin Luther King got assassinated for it. So did Malcolm X. And if you want to include Fred Hampton in that too, Kennedy, Bobby Kennedy, it's just the price you have to kind of pay in order to be and do this. So no, I'm not afraid of it. And hopefully other people will start doing this too, so they can't kill all of us.
People always ask me, like, how do you just start doing that? How do you just stand up and start going after politicians?
So right now we're training other interveners with the Rage Against the War Machine people, and we're trying to really continue to build the coalition of left and right. We're trying to get other people to intervene.
Well, the truth is I'm an American citizen, and I know what that means. There's an old saying that goes, know where you stand and then stand there. And where are we standing today? 100 years ago, this Lincoln Memorial was constructed. And inside, there's a sentence from the Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, which says that we highly resolve that government of the people, by the people, and for the people shall not perish from the earth. But how do you actually do that? My answer is we have to be that free government that we intend to preserve, to improve, or to create. We, not our elected representatives, are the fourth branch of government.
The question is, how do you actually do it? How do you intervene? You know, what is the trick there? Well, the truth is we could do all the training we want, and we are, but ultimately you won't know until you actually are sitting there and you stand up and you do it. Because there's no feeling like the fear you feel when you're doing it, and the tension is there, and you have to actually break the tension. The training is focused on giving people the confidence to know what they're going to say, and giving people confidence to actually stand up and do it. That's what we're focused on, and that's what we're aiming to do. How do you know what to say? Who should be the person you intervene on, and why you should intervene, and also how to record and capture for social media. And the point we make is that everything you do right now will define the future of the country, because our Congress and our Senate and our executive branch are all hijacked. The citizenry has to stand up and be the fourth branch of government, and that's what we're training people to do. We are on a fulcrum right now, where we can either blow ourselves up, or we can advance humanity forward, work with other countries, and develop ourselves to our infinite, fullest potential. And I think the interventions play a big part in moving and pushing us into the direction of good. There's a quote from Edgar Poe, which is really Chamberlain, but Poe quotes this in a story called William Wilson, where he says, what say of it? What say of conscious grim, that specter in my path? And, you know, what that means is, like, why is it when these congressmen, they have to make an intentional choice to kill their conscience. They have to make moral concessions in order to do what they do. And so when you stand up and you remind them that they have a conscience, it's like a ghost that's in front of them. And it stands in front of them, and you're showing the conscience to their face. And that is what freaks them out the most. And that has to be used as a way to remind them that they're human too, as much as they don't want to admit it.
Please clap.